Wendy, is the live stream on? Is it being recorded? Yes, I've received a thumbs up. So I have pleasure in opening the council meeting of the 23rd of July 2024 at 6 p.m. and welcome all those in attendance. The City of Vincent would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay our respects to elders past and present. Also acknowledging that the City of Vincent has a role in working towards reconciliation and justice for First Nations people. Now, I note that everybody is here except for Councillor Greer, who is on an approved leave of absence. So I'm going to check to see whether there is anyone in the public gallery who would like to speak. Can I get an indication? Okay. So if you haven't been to a council meeting at the City of Vincent before, please, when you come forward, can you please, and also if you have, I'm telling you what the process is, please come forward, please state your name and what suburb you reside in, and also what agenda item you wish to speak to. And then we do time to 3 minutes. The timing is on the screen, so please limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you don't wish to be recorded, you won't be seen on the screen, but if you don't wish to have your comments recorded, we can pause the live stream if you want, but you just need to stipulate whether that's the case, please, or whether you just want to address the meeting. So a summary of your remarks as well will be included in the minutes of this meeting. So would anyone like to come forth, please?
Thank you, everybody. Robert Bowe of 232 Brisbane Street, Perth, speaking to agenda item 9.1. Requesting that this request not be approved. I've got a number of issues that I'd like to raise in the short time that I have. Probably the genesis of this comes out of the agenda item document. There's in there essentially at one point saying that the proponents want this to occur because it will solve business operation problem that they have, and that is referred to in the actual document. I'm quite certain that that's not a proper town planning and orderly planning way of solving business problems. I don't know that this mechanism is the correct mechanism. But anyway, moving along from there, the document steadfastly refuses to use the term for what is proposed that is in the council's policy, which is the local planning policy, childcare and family daycare. The two terms that are used in that policy are family daycare and centre-based childcare services. From what I can see in this document, this proposal is to go from the family-based to centre-based, but that term is never actually used. It's always the term that's used, which I would call a watering down term, is childcare premises. It's also quite clear to me, if anybody reads that policy, that it's one of its central thrusts is to differentiate between family daycare and centre-based services, and quite pointedly keep the centre-based services out of residential areas. That's very quite pointed in that document, that policy, which of course this document, the agenda item, does refer to the policy and appears to be trying to say that the proposal isn't at variance to the policy. When anyone who reads the policy can see that
So
that is
can
in
you
fact the
please
case.
conclude your remarks?
Um,
Or we can leave it there. We've noted your comments. Thank you very much.
okay, I'll stop now then. I've done what I can.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to address the meeting, please?
Mayor and Deputy Mayor and councillors, I've been deputised by a group of residents to speak on behalf of them.
So yes, okay, thank you.
So I'll speak just for a couple of minutes over. I'm Gary Simmons. I reside at 231 Brisbane.
Sorry, you won't be able to speak over. That is formal deputising. So if we can just stop that at the moment.
You did mention on Thursday.
Yes, there's actually a part where you need to formally apply to deputise. So you're going to be limited to 3 minutes because we don't have that within the agenda. I'm so sorry.
Well, I'll just get someone to read the other half out.
Yes, and that's perfectly acceptable. Thank you.
Fine, thank you. I'm Gary Simmons at 231 Brisbane Street, Perth. My partner Joe and I built our house as a retirement home, spending north of just $1.3 million over 8 years ago. We specifically designed and built the house to fit in with the residents' streetscape. We both, along with our neighbours, all vote at council elections and take the role of councillor very seriously and appreciate the hard work that's involved in undertaking that task. As you are aware, in May 2024, the Planning Division of the City of Vincent wrote to the applicant, Michael Kay, stating that, 1, the proposal is not compatible with residential development as it would introduce waste, parking, noise considerations of a commercial use into the residential zone. As such, it's against the zone objective. So there's the first breach. The proposal is surrounded by entirely residential uses, is not adjacent to non-residential land uses. The closest non-residential property is approximately 85 metres east of the subject site at 197 Lake Street. As such, the proposal does not meet the objective of the policy. Now, these are the words of the planners to the councillors. An outdoor play area is proposed immediately adjacent to the outdoor living area of our house, 231 Brisbane Street, and in close proximity to other dwellings. The outdoor play areas would be a noise-generating activity that isn't typical to the residential area. As such, the proposal does not meet the objective of the policy. So there's the third breach. Albeit that the applicant has liaised with the city planners to mitigate these breaches, it does not change the fact that prima facie, the proposal does go against the very policy set by council. Any similarities made by the planners that is akin to the family daycare centre business contained within the executive summary, which has not been updated since the previous meeting, is simply false. 1, the application has been made to create a commercial business dedicated to childcare without residents living in the residential building. 2, the family daycare centre has not been continually operating for a 5-year period. It's been operating for like a 2.5-year period. There has, by the applicant's own admission, never had 7 children being cared for on a full-time basis. So therefore, the findings in the executive summary that no complaints that have been made is totally and utterly ill-founded. This application is a farce. And as by the applicant's own admission, they are only making the application because, and I quote, due to significant membership fees that must be paid to third-party management providers, which is mandatory for all family daycare operators. I've made contact with the appropriate authorities, Department of Communities and service providers, and can advise that the 14% fee for family daycare, just one paragraph to go?
One paragraph, please conclude.
Yeah, family daycare coordinator equates to just $400 a week of their total potential earnings. I ask you, is it the role of council to change the use so that council can save a business $400 a week? I do not believe that's the role of council.
Okay, so can you please, we'll finish there, and if you have somebody else who's able to speak to the rest of that, they are welcome to come up and to present the meeting. Hello, could you please say your name and whatsoever you're from?
This bit here? Just 1 second. Tanya Colley of Perth. So to continue, why wouldn't you just let the status quo prevail and let the applicants maintain their family daycare business looking after 7 children? We implore each and every councillor to have a conscious vote and do what is right by your residents, independent of the views and opinions of its planners. by respecting its own policy in the best interests of all residents and refuse the change of use to childcare premises. And if I can add something of my own, I was also, okay, I'll just be short, but basically I also note that there are many inconsistencies and inaccuracies in the proposal, and that speaks to me a lack of trust and a dishonesty that erodes my trust in what the applicants are proposing and saying for their future intentions for this property. There's a glossing over of the truth. This lack of honesty, they're using these points to sway council to give special approval outside the residential guidelines. And if I might just speak from the heart, this area of Vincent, which is bordered from Newcastle Street probably through to Bulwer, we already put up with a lot. Traffic issues, which is under consideration by council at the moment, noise issues. The concentration of drug, alcohol and homelessness services in this area is quite unprecedented in any other part of Vincent. We love the commercial aspect of living in that area, but it's a commercial creep that we're looking at now, that into the last two pockets remaining. And I've lived in this area for more than 5 decades. I was born there, grew up there, and I've come back there and own property there. The drug use, crime, graffiti and other antisocial behaviours and the costs of dealing with this, the financial costs. I've spent thousands of dollars cleaning up graffiti on my property. The personal, emotional health costs associated with things like break-ins, attempted break-ins, robberies that we all experience at probably a higher rate than other areas of Vincent. We do put up with a lot, and we'd like you to consider that in the change of use that's been asked for by these applicants. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone else who would like to address the meeting? Please come forward.
Hi, my name is James Walker. I am in North Perth. I'm here to speak about agenda item 5, a petition. Started. All right. So I'm here because, well, I love the City of Vincent. I believe it to be a progressive, forward-thinking council, one that cares about its people. I'm proud of its diversity, its multicultural ruralness. And it is also a refugee welcome zone, which I think speaks to its values of community as well. And that's why I'm here. I've got a petition going because I want the City of Vincent to stand up and call for a ceasefire in Palestine. This is bigger than all of us. Gaza and Palestine are under assault by Israeli forces. The people are being shepherded here and there. Their homes are being destroyed. They have no food, no water, no medical care. Israel is bombing schools, churches, hospitals, and what were designated safe zones. They are targeting doctors, teachers, and children. 160 children die every day in Gaza at the moment. And I'm here to table this petition to ask you to get this killing to stop. I'm just one person. I can't do this. The federal government does not listen to someone like me, but they listen to their states, and the states listen to the councils, and the councils listen to calls from its people to stand up and do something. Now, this is not an isolated event. There are 9 other councils in Australia who have stood up and called for a ceasefire. There could be 10. And it's that momentum that keeps things going. So I'm here to ask you to please stand up, call for a ceasefire, and stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else wish to address the meeting? Please come forward.
My name's Marlene Wolfe, and I'm North Perth. I actually want to also speak about motion number 5. I see it as going totally against the council governance as well as the Local Government Act, section 2.7. It is far from the council's ideology to participate in international political affairs. Vincent is a multicultural city, and to pass this motion would divide and separate such an inclusive community. Call for a ceasefire in Palestine and to Firstly, I'd like to recognise what is Palestine and what is Gaza. So they're two different issues. Much of the information presented in this motion is ill-researched and in many cases decidedly untrue. Before this motion is voted on, the owner of the said motion should research the historical facts and the case without bias. Yes, I am a Jew, and I do believe in the state of Israel and what is the trauma that's happening there at the moment. And any soul that has been killed is a tragedy. I'm not going to go to the rights of Israel to defend itself, as that should be a given. America did the same in Afghanistan, 9/11, where between 905 and 910,000 were killed. If memory serves, I don't believe Vincent passed a motion to accept the state of Afghanistan. If you look at the facts, the UN, of which 17% of its 104 members, if we include Gaza as a state, deny the right of Israel's existence. And 27% of the Human Rights Council, and that is Human Rights Council and Disarmament, which Iran is the president of, have quoted the 34.9 people who have been killed in Gaza. This figure includes combatants, which Australia has declared terrorists. Unfortunately, due to UN bias, we do not know the civilian casualties in this affair.
Would anyone else like to present to the council who is here?
It's just a bit awkward. Normally it's in that, which is a lot easier. Joke. Okay, Leslie Flory, 79 Sass Ave, Mount Hawthorn. As per the previous council meetings on the 18th of June, I mentioned that All Pipe Technologies report dated the 18th of December 2023 showed there was nothing wrong with the stormwater pipe on my property. However, the City of Vincent arranged to have the pipe UV lined at a cost of $57,000. City of Vincent have provided a vague general response as to the question why it was relined. I'm asking for a detailed and comprehensive explanation from the City of Vincent to the exact condition of the pipe, any defects, and your detailed reasons why the City of Vincent UV lined the pipe when there was nothing wrong with it. This was all confirmed by All Pipe Technologies from their photographs and their report on the 18th of December. At the last council meeting, engineering mentioned an additional pipe was relined. From the 1st of April this year to the financial year at the 30th of June, how many properties with stormwater pipes have been relined and at what cost? City of Vincent has 105 kilometres of stormwater pipes on properties. How many within the entire City of Vincent are planned to be UV lined in the 2024-2025 financial year? From the council meeting in December 2022, the CEO was going to investigate the cost of hiring a qualified consultant to assess the city's drainage network. Can you please provide the total cost, the total expenditure for employing this consultant over a 12-month period? How many pages in total are there in the drainage technical memorandum, as per the details from the council meeting on the 13th of December 2022? If any of the 40 houses that are sustained damage as a result of the city's stormwater pipes, will the affected owners be able to claim compensation under the provision of the Local Government Act of 1997? Has the city planned for an investigated a storm solution in regards to a flood risk management, such as flood mitigation, infrastructure to control the flow, that would be installed along the stormwater drainage pipes in problem areas. Lastly, the City of Vincent is increasing vacant land rates this year, which is double that of residential rates. I take great care to keep my property clean and tidy, and I do not require bins for weekly collection. My situation is unique with exceptional circumstances where I have a large active stormwater pipe on my property, the major asset of the City of Vincent, which I am protecting. In addition to the stormwater pipe, I have easements and restrictions, and I'm unable to sell my property.
Can you please wrap up your comments?
Last sentence. Given these unique circumstances, I'm requesting that the rate increase be aligned with the 4% rate applied to other residential properties. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to address the meeting?
Hello, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Councillors. Thank you. My name is Jerome Waddell from 16 Hammond Street, West Perth. I'm here addressing item 5.1, one of the petitions in relation to a parking issue that's arisen for the residents of Hammond Street and by extension Janet Street and the neighbouring laneway systems of that part of the city. I'll keep it pretty short because it's relatively simple. I know Councillor Alexander's come to have a look and I'm assuming still in the support that the decision that we are none the wiser to in respect to the removal of 2 bays from the street has caused unnecessary stress and, to say the least, confusion, is hence why we got together as a neighbourhood to put forward the petition to have the parking bays reinstated, because as I don't need to, everyone here would know the city has difficulties with respect to its parking amenity, and to remove 2 in what is a very tight and difficult street to get parking in at the best of times just doesn't seem like a clever solution. So we don't know why and how it came to be that they were removed. There was no consultation, and subsequently we're blindsided. So this happened a couple of weeks ago. One of the bays was removed from the front of my wife and my house, and we would like it returned. So too, with everyone that we asked, there was no one who objected. They were complete agreement. They came and had a look, and it's just not seemingly the right decision. So we, with the petition, would recommend that those bays are reinstated. We ask that that's put forward and voted on in support of that, and done within a reasonable time frame. Immediately would be great. We understand that there's a due process that needs to follow. So it's that, quite simple. There's a couple of other people who speak to some of the issues that have arisen in relation to this, but if you could help, we'd be most grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to the meeting?
Hi, I'm Danny Everett-Stotzer of 11 Hammond Street. Good evening to all. So we bought our home on Hammond Street 7 years ago. Immediately we fell in love with the charming character and history of the street. As with many inner city suburbs where houses have insufficient or no off-street parking, this is an issue we face on a daily basis. Obviously, our street was not designed for cars when it was built over 100 years ago. Trying to apply modern Australian safety standards in this scenario sets an unsustainable precedent. I understand that the basis for the removal of 2 car bays from our street was due to concerns about visibility and safety, particularly with increased e-scooter usage becoming common. As someone who commutes to work on my bike, I am well aware of the risks involved to use the road with other users, and it is incumbent on both driver and riders to be mindful of the conditions. Removing car bays is not the most effective safety measure that could have been implemented. I'm also a mum to an energetic and impulsive 5-year-old boy. Safety is a massive concern for us. We often can't find a car park adjacent to our house due to the lack of bays, and we have to be careful in ensuring that my son doesn't run out onto the road as we walk home down the street. Having more cars parked on the street actually forces everyone to slow down and be more mindful of navigating the narrow width of the road. There are a number of traffic calming measures which could have been considered without the loss of the 2 car bays. For example, mirrors on walls, speed bumps, even considering closing off the entrance to Charles Street and making it a one-way traffic only. Just a few ideas that could have been considered and put forward for the whole street's consultation and input. I also work after hours as a doctor in emergency, and I know there are other shift workers on the street who struggle with finding a car park. This is a concern for not only me, but other women who live alone and may come home late at night and struggle to find a car park close to their house. I am concerned that a decision to remove the car parks on our street was made without any consultation from those who will be most significantly impacted on by it. This decision does not meet the guiding principles of the City of Vincent's community and stakeholder engagement policy. It was not based on the needs and interests of all involved. There is a clear lack of understanding of the needs of the street. The community was not meaningfully included in this process, and we were neither engaged nor communicated with at any point in this decision. I respectfully request that these 2 car bays be immediately reinstated and that a proper consultation process be undertaken. Thank you all for your attention and time.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker, please.
Thank you. My name's Sarah Turner. I live at 6 Hammond Street and I vote for local council elections. Thank you. There's obviously a lot of concern about losing the car bays. I think as each of the developments in the area have come up, we've been reassured that there's going to be enough bays and people have thought about it. And with the additional townhouses and things going in there, the reason people are so upset with losing some is because there's just not actually enough in practice. And what we're thinking is that we all want safety for the street, but if we just spend a bit of time and a little bit of extra money looking at this area, we can get some more bays, potentially including those, but otherwise look at the footpath plan, look at the options for mirrors and see if we can get some more cars parked in there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, councillors and also residents. I too live on Hammond Street, 16 Hammond Street, West Perth. My name is Ruth Bott. We bought our house in 2009, so close to 15 years ago. We love it also because it's a beautiful character area, and we realised just that it's in a city, close to the city, and yes, there are challenges with parking. We have next door to us on 14 Hammond Street, we're of the understanding that they initiated the changes to the parking. We have about 20 parking allocations on the street. It's a small street. Now we're down to 18. We basically all rocked up back from work with 2 missing from our street. I'd like to read a letter from the former occupants of 14 Hammond Street. They left the resident 2 years ago. This is the 4th family that we've come to know, or couple that we've come to know. And they did not have the issue of sightline backing out. And I'd just like to read a letter from this person. It's Barrister Joel Trigg. He says, I'm the former owner of 14 Hammond Street, West Perth. I lived in Hammond Street from April 2016 until May 2022. The Hammond Street parking was always an issue the entire time I lived in the street. I found that the 2 parking spots in front of my house and in the front of 16 Hammond Street were invaluable. However, even with these parking places, I would still be required to park on Florence Street on occasion. I understand that the parking in Hammond Street has been reduced by 2 parking bays, which in my opinion would create further parking issue in an already busy street. So there's been no transparency and no consultation, no letters in our letterbox to explain what has occurred. Many of us have elderly parents, and we cannot find parking spots for these people. And that is something that is very concerning to us. I'd also like to add the parking bay that was outside our house that has been removed, 16 Hammond Street, has been there for decades. There are people still parking there now, not understanding what this yellow line is for. It is a perfectly fine parking spot. So it's caused great confusion on our street. So we would really love some consultation and to also look into further how this can come to be, that just one couple on the street can speak to the council with it resulting in 2 parking spots missing. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address the meeting?
My name's Matthew Schembry from 24 Raglan Road.
Okay, I will note that you're actually down to give a deputation to the council, so I will call for deputations as a separate item.
My apologies. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the meeting during the public time?
Matt Henton, 6 Janet Street, West Perth. Just like to echo the concerns of the parking bays going missing. We've recently renovated our house and being constrained by the heritage guidelines applied to our street, and it limits the ability to put in car parking bays at the front of your house, and to have bays taken away from this heritage and character area is a concern. Obviously we expect overflow, and with the numerous townhouses going in the old Sheridan premise, that we feel like the issue is going to exacerbate even more. So we'd like the parking reinstated, please. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address the council meeting?
Good evening, council members, neighbours and fellow residents. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Michael Kao from 235 Brisbane Street, Perth, and I'm here to speak to agenda item 9.1. Since 2018, my wife Abby has been running a family daycare at our residence. Abby is a deeply committed to providing high quality, affordable childcare and education services to local families. We are seeking a change to a childcare structure to alleviate the substantial administration fees associated with the current family daycare setup. These fees amount to approximately $500 a week, totaling $25,000 a year, which poses a significant challenge to maintaining our business viability and keeping childcare services affordable. Our proposal involves transitioning to a different administrative structure while maintaining our small-scale operation with a maximum of 7 children on site. We have received no complaints from neighbours since 2018, demonstrating that our service has not adversely impacted the community. There will be no changes to the dwelling, ensuring that the neighbourhood's character remains intact. Our proposal is in full compliance with the council policies and planning recommendations. We pledge to maintain the limit of 7 children and are open to any conditions the council might suggest to further reassure our neighbours. We fully support maintaining the area as residential and are not requesting any zoning changes. No building modifications are planned, and the site can revert to a residential dwelling if the daycare operations cease. Signage will be kept to a minimum in accordance with council recommendations, and we intend to consult neighbours regarding its design if approved. We don't have any noise complaints previously, and we don't foresee any additional issues. We will implement a noise management plan and provide Abby's direct contact details to ensure concerns are immediately addressed should they occur. To manage traffic conditions, we will comply with car and bicycle bay requirements and also include sufficient on-site parking. In closing, Abby and I extend our gratitude to council members and the City of Vincent team for their time in considering our application. We also value the feedback from our neighbours, particularly Gary, Robert and Megan. If approved, we are committed to working closely with the community to ensure our operations continue to be harmonious and beneficial for all. Thank you.
Okay, would anyone else like to present to the council?
Hello, Kath Colvin of number 12 Hammond Street in West Perth.
I'd just like to echo the sentiments of the other residents of Hammond Street at our confusion and distress at having the two car bays removed. The parking amenity is already limited in the street, and to remove 2 bays is just really unpractical and causes a lot of issues for people coming home late at night trying to find parking. There are a number of single women who live alone on the street, and it's a safety issue for them to try and find parking late at night. When this decision was made, there was no consultation with the local residents. The decision was seemingly made at the request of one resident of the street, and so we respectfully request that a full consultation process is undertaken, including all of the residents of Hammond and the surrounding areas. We gathered a petition of approximately 50 signatures, so there was a lot of support from the local residents to state their disappointment at this decision, and that they would request that the parking bays be reinstated. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone further who would like to address the meeting? I advise that the items that have been brought forward on the agenda will be discussed first. There being no further questions, I close public question time at 6:36. Okay, Governance Manager, can you please confirm if any written statements were received?
Confirming that we received a number of written statements in relation to a petition tabled at item 5 on the agenda. We also received statements from Glenn Christie of Mount Lawley and Dudley Meyer of Highgate. Any questions that were raised in those statements will be responded to in the minutes of the next meeting.
Okay, I've received one application for leave of absence from Councillor Hallett, seeking leave of absence from the 1st to the 15th of September. Do we have a mover for that? Move to Councillor Castle. Sorry?
Apologies, can I make a request for leave of absence as well?
I'm going to deal with one at a time, and so I'll do that, and then I'll call for other leaves of absence. Is there a second for the leave? So seconded, Councillor Wolf. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Are there any other requests for leave of absence?
There's one. Thank you, Mayor Zeman. Can I please request a leave of absence from the 25th of July through the 12th of August?
Okay, so Councillor Wallace has requested a leave of absence from the 25th of July to the 12th of August. Do we have a mover for that? Moved Councillor Castle, and that's seconded Councillor Hallett. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Are there any further applications for leave of absence? Okay, so now we get to deputations. We have received a request for deputation from Matthew Schmeebry. Sorry, I hope I said that okay, in relation to a submitted petition. Please come forward. You'll have 5 minutes to present.
Thank you. I understand that there's a presentation that I can talk against, please.
Okay, we'll just wait to get that set up.
Dear councillors, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you tonight. My name is Matthew Schembry. I live on Raglan Road in Mount Lawley, and I'd like to talk to you about a community petition against an unapproved bin area associated with the strata of 83 Walcott Street. Next slide, please. I will A, present the petition, B, provide some background information, C, describe the problem, and D, suggest some ways that you may be able to help as a council. Next slide, please. The petition has been signed by 26 of my neighbours or right-of-way users. The primary intent is to highlight that this issue has broader community concern than any single complaint or dialogue with the city on this issue. The slide that you've got in front of you is location map. The unapproved bin area is along the right-of-way between Alma Road and Raglan Road and is on private land associated with the strata of 83 Walcott. Next slide, please. To provide some history, the bin area was once 3 visitor bays as per the original strata development approval. It caused no problems. The area was kept clean and tidy. The strata began directing commercial tenants to store their bins in the visitor parking bay. As you can see from the pictures, the area quickly began to deteriorate. Waste was not kept within bins and began to accumulate. Graffiti appeared, and the noise of slamming bin lids began to annoy local residents. We bought our house from a deceased estate of a lovely 104-year-old lady in July 2023. Our own property is directly across from the right-of-way from these visitor parking bays and bin areas. Shortly after moving into the property, we soon began to make inquiries with our local neighbours as to the state of the area. As a community, we asked the commercial tenants to help tidy up the area. They declined. As a community, we asked the strata manager to help tidy the area, but we were told to mind our own business. We understand that the city's compliance team is having similar difficulties in opening a dialogue with the strata manager. As a community, we disposed of the rubbish ourselves. We painted over the graffiti at our own expense. And thanks to the intervention of Councillor Ashley Wallace, 2 abandoned and overflowing wheelie bins were removed from the area. But we still have problems. Next slide, please. I'm going to talk about these issues in a little bit more detail over the next couple of slides. Next slide, please. Noise. The commercial tenants use the converted car park bin area late at night, and the slamming bin lids can be heard within homes up to at least 80 metres away. This is a CCTV capture of the bin being used at 10:37 p.m. on a Thursday night. Next slide, please. Noise of the bin traffic. There is no way for the commercial tenants to access the bin area from within the strata complex. This picture shows the strata layout. Note that the strata does not have street frontage in front of the bin area. They wheel their bins and trolleys along the right-of-way late at night, being very noisy. Next slide, please. And this is a picture of a wheelie bin being trafficked along the right-of-way late at night with the staff using a mobile phone to light up the area. Next slide, please. The area is poorly lit and used mostly at night. No one takes responsibility for any of the rubbish that gets dumped outside of the bins, so it just accumulates until a neighbour picks it up and disposes of it in their own bins. Next slide, please. Injectable clinics have a medical waste bin that is often left unsecured. Medical waste is a danger to the community. It really should be kept locked. Next slide, please. Parking. Bins restrict access to the visitor bays. This has increased parking on our street. The picture to the left is of a cafe employee ignoring the white lines and partially blocking a driveway. The bins restrict the turning circles of the vehicles parked in these visitor bays. The picture to the right is a hole in my fence after a car reversed through it whilst trying to access one of the visitor bays. Next slide, please. And finally, it's visually unappealing. There's a lot of foot traffic along this right-of-way, as you can sort of tell from the 26 signatures that have signed this petition. It's really obvious, but walking past this bin area is not very pleasant. Next slide, please. How are you able to help us? Could you please assist us in removing the bins from this visitor parking bay to prevent the area deteriorating once more? Could you please maintain an awareness of the compliance department's actions to have these bins returned to within the complex? Could you please consider reviewing any relevant policies? Perhaps...
Could you please wind up your remarks?
Yeah, sure, thank you. Perhaps better education to landlords, or perhaps there could be grants to allow bins to be stored within the complexes. And finally, we welcome any policies that facilitate the beautification of the City of Vincent's right-of-way network. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, we have received 4 petitions. So petition number 1 is a petition with 26 signatures from Matthew Shimbury of Mount Lawley, requesting council's support to resolve an issue with a potentially unapproved bin area adjoining a community right-of-way at the strata of 83 Walcott Street, Mount Lawley. A full copy of the text of the petition will be available in the minutes of the meeting. Clause 2.24, Petitions in the City of Vincent Meeting Procedures Local Law, provides the following options for council on the receipt of a petition. 1, we will confine the presentation to the reading of the petition, which I've just done. 2, and the only motions that can be considered are A, that the petition be received, or B, that the petition be received and a report be prepared, or C, that the petition be received and be referred to a committee for consideration and report, or D, that the petition be received and be dealt with by the council. It's proposed that the petition be received. Can I have a mover? It's moved, Councillor Alexander. Do I have a seconder? Okay, seconded, Councillor Wallace. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried. So petition number 2. A petition with 6 signatures has been received from Jeremy Waddell of West Perth, containing 17 signatures and a further 23 survey responses, requesting that council investigate parking restrictions implemented on Hammond Street. A full copy of the text of the petition will be available in the minutes of the meeting. Clause 2.24, Petitions in the City of Vincent Meeting Procedures Local Law, provides the following options for council on the receipt of a petition. 1, we will confine the presentation to the reading of the petition, which I've just done. 2, and the only motions that can be considered are A, that the petition be received, or B, that the petition be received and a report be prepared, or C, that the petition be received and be referred to a committee for consideration and report, or D, that the petition be received and be dealt with by the council. It's proposed that the petition be received. Can I have a mover? So moved, Councillor Wolf, seconded, Councillor Hallett. All those in favour? Okay, that's all those against. Okay, so that's carried. Thank you. I'm noting that Councillor Wallace has voted against. So petition number 3. A petition from James Walker of North Perth, containing 154 signatures and a further 80 survey responses, requesting that council make a resolution in respect to the situation in Gaza. A full copy of the text of the petition will be available in the minutes of the meeting. Clause 2.24, Petitions in the City of Vincent Meeting Procedures Local Law, provides the following options for council on the receipt of a petition. 1, we will confine the presentation to the reading of the petition, which I've just done. 2, and the only motions that can be considered are A, that the petition be received, or B, that the petition be received and a report be prepared, or C, that the petition be received and be referred to a committee for consideration and report, or D, that the petition be received and be dealt with by the council. It's proposed that the petition be received. Can I have a mover? So it's moved, Councillor Alexander, seconded, Councillor Castle. All those in favour?
Sorry, Mayor Zaman, am I able to speak to this prior to putting the vote?
No, we don't speak on procedural matters. So we put this proposal first. If there's an alternate, if it fails, then we can move to an alternate proposal. So all those in favour? Against? Okay, that's carried. Okay, so then we go to petition number 4. A petition from Emma Pegram of Perth, containing 12 signatures, requesting that council relocate the public artwork titled The Globe that is proposed for installation at the intersection of William and Brisbane Streets. A full copy of the text of the petition will be available in the minutes of the meeting. Clause 2.24, Petitions in the City of Vincent Meeting Procedures Local Law, provides the following options for council on the receipt of a petition. We will confine the presentation to the reading of the petition, which I've just done, and the only motions that can be considered are A, that the petition be received, or B, that the petition be received and a report be prepared, or C, that the petition be received and be referred to a committee for consideration and report, or D, that the petition be received and be dealt with by the council. It's proposed that the petition be received and a report be prepared. Do we have a mover for that? So that's moved, Councillor Wolf, seconded Councillor LaFontaine. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we move to the confirmation of minutes, and the proposal is that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 18th of June 2024 be confirmed. Do we have a mover for that? So that's moved Councillor Alexander and seconded Councillor Castle. So all those in favour? Against? Oh, sorry, I wasn't sure. Councillor Wallace, was that for or against? Sorry?
In favour.
Okay, so that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so I have a couple of announcements that I really I'm keen to speak to. The first thing that I'm very excited about has been the recent announcement that the City of Vincent has been successful in receiving the Housing Support Program grant. That's going to be worth $980,000 from the federal government. So I think it's important to note that we are the only WA Metro local government to receive this grant. We're the only one. And I really want to thank the federal government and also the federal member for Perth, the Honourable Patrick Gorman, who has been supportive in terms of us being able to do better planning for our future. So, councillors, I'd love you to have a better idea of what this grant's going to do. You can understand then why I'm so excited. What this is going to mean is that we have been funded by the federal government to do a servicing and infrastructure study across Vincent. As we move towards our required density targets. So that means that what we are going to do is we are now being funded to do a review of the existing service level of urban infrastructure, how it relates to traffic and public transport and water and sewerage and power and a whole range of other matters as well. So that means that from a primary perspective, we're going to be able to look at, as we increase our density in Vincent, what are we going to need in terms of improvements around water, sewerage, power and drainage, and also from a secondary perspective, the sorts of infrastructure that we're going to be needing moving forward around what our public open space requirements are going to be, the community facilities that we're going to need in the City of Vincent. It is going to be able to start touching on the issue of schools, even if all it's doing is identifying that there's going to need to be more work done to plan for our inner city schools. And councillors, we all know that that's critical work that needs to get done. Public transport requirements moving forward, and also looking at the road infrastructure. If you think about some of the hairy debates that we've had to undertake recently in recent meetings in this chamber, you think about the conflict around road closures, for example, with Harold Street, and how there was going to be unforeseen flow-on effects to Chelmsford Road. The purpose of this is to actually start doing exactly what it is we said in the course of that debate, that we want to be able to start getting some precinct-wide planning in terms of what is needed as we move to increase density. So we already know that the state government has given us a target of 11,500 new dwellings and 25,000 new people by 2050. And so we also need to be able to look at how our ageing assets are going to cope with this massive influx of additional people. So I think it's really great that we're going to be looking at having more residents coming into inner city Perth. We know that it's important to actually have our transit-oriented developments proceed and mixed-use developments. But it is also really critical that we have got the planning in place to ensure that our roads are not only going to be accessible, but also that we're dealing with some of the more problematic issues that we are dealing with as councillors on a daily basis, issues of traffic congestion and rat running, and also roadblocks for pedestrians and people who use alternative forms of transport. So I'm really pleased that we have been successful in getting this money. It's a real achievement. I want to thank the City of Vincent staff who were obviously put all the effort into trying to make sure that we were successful in getting this grant. I think it'll be fantastic because if nothing else, it will identify not only what's needed, but also what further research is going to be required in key areas so we have a good idea of how we can make sure that the City of Vincent, as we meet our density targets, becomes as livable and as successful as an inner city precinct as we possibly can. So that is really good. On another note, I'm disappointed to have heard that testing for the shot hole borer has been put on hold because there's been issues identified with the tests being able to be rolled out because of issues with Deep Earth having asbestos in their building. I'm representing one of many councils that is getting increasingly concerned about what is happening with the timeliness of addressing shot hole borer. This is a huge challenge for us here in the city, not just with our iconic parks like Hyde Park, but it's affecting people's personal backyards. It's affecting our street trees. It's a massive concern. So I'm joining the call of that's increasingly coming from the research facilities to improve the amount of money that's being made available by the state government for research to be able to be undertaken, and also to ensure that some of the limitations around how research can be undertaken are lifted as a matter of urgency. And we have also written to Minister Jackie Jarvis, the State Minister for Agriculture, asking for a significant amount of money over the next 5-year period to ensure that we can greatly enhance our replanting efforts. I hold the view very strongly that for every tree that we lose, we should be planting at least 5 more. But we're going to be needing additional funding from the state government in order to enable that to occur, because otherwise we as a small council are going to be taking the greatest hit in terms of the loss of our already meagre tree canopy, but without having been given the resources to be able to look at planting that out. This is an emergency that we're dealing with, but we also can't, and we also can't afford to wait until we're looking at replanting. We are removing trees that are up to 120 years old. We can't wait for 5, 10 years until we're planting more. So that is something that I'm hoping we're going to get an election announcement on. And I look forward to something very favourable coming from the Premier, who I'm sure will recognise that this is an issue that everyone in the inner city councils, but also broader Perth, are very concerned about, and he's going to do his part to make sure that we have a substantive amount of money to be able to deal with this crisis. So, declarations of interest. CEO, do you have any?
Through you, Mayor Zaman, just one declaration of interest received from yourself, which is an impartiality interest in relation to item 9.2, relating to number 3 Lawley Street, West Perth, which is the development application for a soccer net addition to recreation facility. The extent of the impartiality interest being that Mayor Zaman is a member of Perth Soccer Club. And that's all that was received for tonight's meeting.
Indeed, go Azuri. Now, are there any other declarations of interest that people wish to declare? Okay. All right then. So the items which are the subject of a question, it's 9.1, which was the first one said, and so we're going to be dealing with that. Okay, I'm going to then go around and ask what other items people that are on the agenda that people would like to have addressed. Councillor Warner. None. Councillor Wallace. Councillor LaFontaine. Councillor Castle. Councillor Alexander. Councillor Wolf.
10.1, please.
10.1. Okay. Councillor Hallett.
12.1, which is probably going to anyway.
Okay, and I have down, in addition to the ones that have already been said, 12.2. Okay, so means that
confirming the following items will be moved on block: 9.2, 11.1, 11.2 and 11.3.
Okay, do we have a mover for that? So that's moved Councillor Wolf, seconded Councillor LaFontaine. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so I move to 9.1, and that is number 235, Brisbane Street, Perth, change of use from family daycare to childcare premises. Do we have a mover to discuss this matter? People. Okay, moved Councillor Wolf. Do we have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Castle. Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to all the residents and to the applicant for sharing your views on this one and engaging in the process. Discretion is being sought from Council to permit this change of use. And in terms of the land use, our ability to use that discretion is explicitly allowed for in the context of community consultation. And we've heard loud and clear from the community about amenity concerns stemming from this non-residential use in a residential zone. In visiting the site, it's very clear to me that the proposal will be inconsistent with the objectives of the Childcare and Family Daycare Centre policy. This policy seeks to ensure that centre-based childcare services are adjacent to and complement other non-residential land uses, so to avoid adverse impact on residents. Its second objective is to keep noise-generating activities such as outdoor play areas, vehicle access ways and car parking areas away from residential dwellings. So I note that there are operational measures and conditions outlined in the report, but to me, on balance, I don't think that those operational measures that are proposed are strong enough to overcome the inconsistencies, particularly in relation to that policy, so I can't support the application.
Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I agree that this is a balancing exercise that we're being asked to weigh here. And what I do note is that the applicant currently has an approved use in this area, in this property, and that is for a family daycare for 7 children. I have heard the residents' concerns, and I note that given that the approved use that is currently in place was exempt from needing approval, this is the first opportunity the residents have had to voice their concerns to Council. I also note that what we're really needing to determine here is what is the difference in impact between what is currently approved and what is being sought today. I do have given regard to the childcare policy and the need for it to be consistent with the area, but I also recognise that there, to my mind, will be no material change in amenity impact between what is currently approved and what is being sought to be approved. We have had a bit of discussion about the reasons for requesting the change, and that is not something that is relevant or is something that I would, or that we should have regard to. We just have to assess the application that is before us. It's not a requirement of the family daycare use that the property, that the operators reside in the property, and I understand that they no longer do. So I just fail to see how this change of use will actually make any material difference to the impact in the area. I know that's probably cold comfort to the residents who didn't have an opportunity to discuss that when it was approved for family daycare. But given that is what we have and that is what was being sought, I don't believe that we have grounds to refuse, and I'll be supporting the officer recommendation.
Would anyone else like to speak to this item? Councillor Warner.
Everyone else is always so speaks so well, and I'm always going to mumble. Basically, for me, a childcare premises within the residential zone is not permitted unless Council exercises discretion by approving a development application for the use following consultation with the community. We've done that. We've done the consultation with the community, and it is overwhelmingly opposed to doing this. So for me, that's where I'm taking my guidance from this. I'm also looking at the other policies we have here about the proposal being within a residential zone. the external play spaces are not being located away from adjoining noise-sensitive land uses. So I can't support this proposal. Thank you.
Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Hallett.
Thank you. A few comments and a couple of questions for administration. I guess this is the privileged but difficult decision we end up being with development applications and our assessments. There's been lots of reasons raised about legitimate concerns about the development application. But in terms of the actual decision, it's quite a narrow set of criteria that we're allowed to actually make our decision on, and otherwise to do otherwise is unlawful. I just want to run through some of the concerns and consider how we might apply them in this case. So firstly, the motivation of the applicants has been said to be wanting to save money on staffing. That's a really legitimate business decision on their part, and it's entirely appropriate for them to access all possible avenues to benefit their business, including seeking a change of use. And an applicant's motivation may provide some context of the situation generally, but isn't actually part of any consideration that we have for making the decision. There's been some discussion about the drug use and the safety in the area, and I can understand that that's absolutely a shared concern across many parts of Vincent. In terms of us taking that on board as a decision-making criteria, though, it's up to the business to decide whether or not they're willing to run in a particular context, and we can't consider that. There's also been some concerns raised about opening up the door for future changes that increase the intensity of use or escalate an amenity impact. It's a bit trickier, so I'll address that in a few parts. One is the change of use proposed in the application is bound to the current applicant, and so with the specific conditions placed in the recommendation with limits on children and staff. So if the applicant wants to increase capacity, that would come back to council with an application for change. That might be in the future. It might not be this current council, and a future council may or may not come to the same assessment that we might tonight. But the decision for that limit is clearly articulated in the recommendation. That's why administration has said a limit of 7, and any future decision makers would have access and be provided that history and the rationale. The tricky bit for me is around the idea of precedent and this being an area that is entirely residential, adjacent to some other areas that are mixed use. And the idea that by approving a commercial enterprise in this residential zone opens up the likelihood of more commercial entities being approved and perceived erosion of the residential character. I'm just wondering if administration could just comment on the limitations of the zoning and what consideration or what impact an approval of what, compared to some commercial uses, it's quite different, but if there's future applications for commercial use in this area, what consideration would this decision have on those?
Through you, Mayor Zaman, to give a little bit of context to the rest of that answer, I think in considering this application very specifically, we've had regard to the site history as well as our planning framework that would specifically exempt this kind of scale of a commercial use being a childcare or a family daycare centre in this particular site. So if we were to consider a future shop or other commercial-based land use within the residential zone, we would consider them against their merits. But the fact that this operates as a childcare centre, we would consider it the scale that it was approved as in terms of weighting the decision, or I guess it being a non-residential use when considering that other change of use within the surrounding area.
Thank you. I do have a few challenges around this application, though. My main challenge, and Councillor Castle referred to this, was that part of the rationale for approval is based on a continuation of the same impact of amenity as the current use. We have heard from neighbours that amenity will change because the number of children in the development has not been 7 up till now. And as Councillor Castle mentioned, the neighbours weren't given an opportunity to comment because that was excluded from needing an approval under the current use. There's a number of other childcare centres that exist in the city in residential areas, which were listed in, I think, the applicant's response later in the report. Can you comment on when these were approved and the genesis of our childcare policy?
Sure. Through you, Mayor Zamon, we did conduct a review of the list of the other childcare centres. I think there was a couple in North Perth primarily. They range in age, but viewing most of them, they've operated for quite an extensive period of time. Some of them were in the early 2000s and the late 1990s. So considered and approved under a different planning framework, also in different unique contexts as well and different scales. Yeah, they would all be considered on their merits. In terms of the current planning framework, that was recently reviewed and adopted in the last couple of years. And when we went through the review of the childcare policy, we specifically introduced a number of provisions to look at the appropriate locations of childcare centres as well as their design and locating noise-emitting activities away from surrounding sensitive uses, mainly residential properties. But at that time, we also considered what would be acceptable within the residential zone. And one of those provisions was specifically the scale of 7 children for a family daycare as being acceptable, with the larger centres needing to be located away from sensitive uses and particularly residential properties. So some of those more historic premises, specifically the ones that were listed in here, may not meet current policy standards, but they are historic decisions.
And apart from the alignment of the 7 children to being what is exempted under different policy, is there any reason why 7 is a threshold that the city considers that noise from children is not an amenity impact?
Through you, Mayor Zamon. So while we have had weighting to the site history, and I know that there's been some contention around how many kids have actually been there, we've also considered our planning exemptions and our acceptance for 7 kids as being appropriate within the residential zone. But it is important to note that the majority of weight on our decision and the reasoning for our support is grounded against the planning framework, specifically against how the scale and the intensity of this proposal, in combination with the operational management measures, would ensure that it does operate at a scale and intensity that is appropriate within the residential zone. So most of our weight has considered the operating times, how they will use the outdoor area, the capacity of children, and how they're going to manage comings and goings in the car park and the like. So on balance, in considering those 3 elements, but with the majority of our weight to considering how the proposed use would function with the proposed management measures, we're satisfied it meets the policy objectives and it would be complementary to the surrounding residential area.
Thank you. Just one of my other concerns, and I'm not sure that this is really can form part of our decision making, there's a limitation of outdoor play to 2 one-hour sessions daily, which I understand that that's necessary to protect the neighbours, but for me would suggest a poor outcome for the children in terms of recommendations varying between 3 to 6 hours a day of outdoor activity. I guess I'm not convinced that as a collection of conditions this is a good outcome, but I don't have any suggestions for changes because I think that would be an increase in amenity impact. I'm still a little bit on the fence on this, so I'm hoping a few other councillors want to have some comments. But all up, I'm not convinced that taking this, if this went to the State Administrative Tribunal...
Councillor, please conclude your remarks.
Yeah, there is a large amount of case.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak on this matter? Councillor LaFontaine.
Thank you, Mayor Zamon. Yes, I think that the discretion being asked is just a little too much with the land use and the sound, and I think that with the consultation being done and with the concerns that have been expressed in the gallery tonight, that the neighbouring residents are concerned with the loss of amenity that would come from this application, particularly with the waste and the traffic and noise. And I think I would agree with Councillor Hallett with some of those about maintaining and ensuring that that amenity is maintained. So yeah, I'm not not supportive of this currently. Thank you.
Does any other councillor wish to speak to this item? I wish to make some comments. I'm persuaded by the concerns raised about the potential commercial creep coming into what is a residential area. I agree with the concerns that have been raised that future council may hold a different view in relation to what will at that point be an existing use, and may actually feel that it is appropriate to continue the path of having commercial operations operating out of these residential areas. It is one of the last pockets of consistent residential properties within this particular precinct, and there's lots of commercial opportunities in some of the main feeder roads rather than going into this particular area. I myself have with a previous council where I was a resident, applied to run a home office from my then residence, and there were clear criteria about even how that could operate. I did it because it was a law firm, and it's important to be compliant with everything. But it meant that there was clear understandings about comings and goings and what could and could not be used, because it was at the end of the day a residential home. In the same way, family daycare is just that. It's a particular model of daycare that's designed to fit within a regular home environment, and that's why it's also it's managed in a different way. And it has a different potential impact in terms of neighbouring surrounds. So I am concerned I am not persuaded that this is actually a step in the right direction, and I think that there is an issue of precedent, and how would you agree to this and then not agree to next door deciding that they also want to be a childcare centre, and then the one next to that, and the one next to that. Once you have actually opened up that door, you have effectively created that precedent for change of use, not just in that one house, but potentially every house in that street. So that is a concern that I have. Now, Councillor Wolf, would you like to conclude your comments? Okay, so we're going to put the item. So all those in favour? Okay, that's so Councillor Castle and Councillor Wallace are in support. Against? Okay, so that's Councillor Hallett, Councillor Wolf, Councillor Alexander, Councillor LaFontaine, Councillor Warner and Mayor Zamon opposed. Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we'll move on to the next item. Sorry. Right.
So to clarify, the recommendation as presented by administration for approval has been lost. We will now need to move an alternate. Do any council members wish to table an alternate?
Okay, so if someone would like to move, so Councillor Hallett, you're happy to work with administration to quickly pull together the alternate? Okay.
Okay. Councillor Hallett?
The words will go up on the screen. Just while we're waiting for that to go up, the alternate is proposing to refuse the application for change of use, essentially for 4 reasons. One is that the introduction of a commercial land use would have an adverse impact on the residential amenity of the locality due to encroachment of an incompatible non-residential development. The second reason is that the land use would result in noise generating activities that are located adjacent to residential dwellings and that are sensitive to noise. The third one is that access arrangements and likely traffic generated would have a detrimental impact on the flow of traffic movement in the area. And the last one, that the proposed development doesn't provide for adequate parking arrangements and management measures to demonstrate that the parking and access would be suitable to meet the needs of its users. If I could get a seconder.
So seconded by Councillor Wolf. Councillor Hallett, would you wish to speak further to this proposal? Okay, Councillor Wolf, do you wish to? Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Okay, I'm going to put the item. All those in favour? Okay, against? Okay, so that was carried with Councillor Castle and Councillor Wallace voting against. Okay. Okay, so it has been suggested if anyone here is staying here because they're in relation to the petitions, they've been dealt with. So just advising that. Although you're very welcome to stay and watch everything. Okay, so I'm going to move to 10.1, Verge Valet Service Review. Do I have a mover for that? Moved Councillor Wolf. Do I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor LaFontaine. Councillor Wolf, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Mayor. I just didn't want this one to go by without the opportunity to applaud the city on the transition away from our previous bulk waste service as we move through the trial now to securing this potentially as a standard service offering. This just makes sense to me, not only in terms of the community feedback, but for a range of reasons, the ability to book on demand, the benefits in terms of our security, financial benefits, that there's a whole range. I did note that we've still got a couple of logistical issues that we're ironing out in terms of some of the bulkier items and the multiple unit dwellings. But as we discussed at the briefing, really pleased to see that these are being worked on. This is definitely a great move in the right direction.
Councillor LaFontaine. Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? I'm going to make a couple of comments. I'll confess that even as a long-term resident, I didn't actually know about the Verge Valet until I got onto council. I knew about the large green waste that we do because I get a card and in my letterbox and I use it. And I obviously used to know about the large Verge pickups, but I didn't actually know about the Verge Valet. And I note that the figures actually talk about 30% of people not actually even knowing what it is. I do agree with all the thinking that's gone into moving to this system. I think that makes a lot of sense. I certainly do remember the dark days of what the streets would look like when we were preparing for the Bring Out Your Dead with all of the rubbish all over the streets. That was the worst. But
But one of the things I'm mindful of is that I live obviously over towards Highgate, very high density with lots of rentals and apartments, and it is really common for people to just leave their stuff out on the pathway without actually contacting Verge Valet and just leaving it there. I think if people were better informed about this, then they would actually take advantage of that and it would go, rather than residents having to ring up saying, did you know they've jumped a whole bunch of stuff again, and having the tape around it saying this is an illegal dump, and it would save a lot of hassle. I reckon people would take better advantage of it. So it is a really good service, and I only used it for the first time about a month ago. And it was awesome. Like it worked exactly how it said it would work. Happy days. But I would have liked to have known about it earlier. So I also acknowledge that it's really wonderful that we've got a total rethink on what's happening with e-waste, and arising out of one of the recommendations from the last AGM, that there has been serious work being undertaken to make sure that we've got regular opportunities for pick up of smaller electrical items throughout the year, separate to the issue of the once a year big electrical pickups. I'm hoping we're going to be able to announce something around that soon, because that's a very important piece of recycling that we do need to focus on. It's only going to get worse, not less, and particularly in this age. So I'm happy to support the proposal, and would really think that we should maybe look at the comms and how we can really let people know about this, particularly considering we have such a high turnover of people because of rentals and the like. So people won't necessarily know what it is that we do here. And I would love it if people just stop dumping stuff, because they don't need to, because we have this amazing service here in the best council in the world. Now, would anyone else like to speak on this item? Hey, Councillor Wolf, did you want to say anything in conclusion? All right, so all those in favour? Okay, it's passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so our next item is 12.1, report and minutes of the Audit Committee meeting held on the 27th of June, 2024. Do we have a mover for this? Sorry? Okay. Okay, so protocol is that this is moved by the Deputy Chair, Councillor Alexander. Okay, do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Castle. Councillor Alexander, is there anything that you would like to say to this? Not sure. We don't do questions through that. We note that Councillor Alexander doesn't have anything further to add. Councillor Castle, do you wish to say anything? Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? Okay, all those in favour? Okay, so moving through. So we then go on to 12.1, the information bulletin. Okay, do we have and I note there were a few people that wanted to speak about some of the items. Do we have a mover for this? We have a mover. Moved Councillor Castle, seconded Councillor Hallett. Councillor Castle, did you wish to speak to any of this? Councillor Hallett? I do. Can I just ask administration, in relation to the Berryman Cafe issue, can I just get a little bit of an update on where we're at in terms of what the conditions that are deemed to be too onerous, and if there's anything that we need to be aware of?
Through you, Mayor Zaman. Good timing. Berryman and the update. Stat appeal. Provided last week, it's confirmed in the agenda. Ultimately, there is a live SAT appeal, and the SAT has invited council to reconsider its decision, specifically the terms of the approval, because the decision was for an approval. So now the applicant has an opportunity to prepare some information to accompany their amendments and suggested or intended adjustments to the conditions that will be submitted to City's administration, and then we'll table a report with a recommendation at the October council meeting.
So that was my next question, was when we could expect to see that. Okay, so, all right. So can I just check, has that then delaying the opening of the cafe completely, or simply looking at proceeding with the cafe but on the currently approved conditions?
Simon, it's not delaying it because they have an approval. They can enact that approval currently. They would still need to obtain a building permit for the fit out and such. So it's not holding it up, but clearly from the applicant's perspective, they're not comfortable with the terms of that approval and are not intending to enact the approval that has been issued, which is why they want to revisit the conditions prior to committing any more time or resources in terms of progressing with that.
Can I just ask, in terms of then amended criteria that may be presented, is that going to be subject to consultation with the neighbours again, or is that considered to be a matter on foot for which consultation has adequately occurred?
Mayor Zaman, I won't speculate. We'll need to see the information. Council, what I will say is that Council has a very clear position prescribed in its policy around community engagement, and that's the framework, and it prescribes circumstances when administration or the city will undertake community consultation. So we'll assess it against those prescribed standards, and ultimately if it could reasonably result in a greater amenity impact, for example, then that's something that we'll go back out to community and consult on.
Okay, are there any further questions in relation to this item? Comments? Okay, so all those in favour? Okay, so acknowledge, so that's 12.2 that has been dealt with. So there are no confidential items on the agenda, so there being no further business to conduct. I thank all those in attendance and on the live stream, and I close the meeting at 7:30. Can you please stop the live stream? Thank you, Wendy.